If everyone can get their seats and their food, we'd like to begin.
Thank you.
Some people are not, for sure, not coming, so the quorum is lower.
The safe record.
Okay.
Take my whole council, remaining 4 members.
Right, right.
So we might want to discuss.
Yeah. Okay. We can also let's talk to them. Yeah. You can even raise it here.
So welcome to our quarterly
Yeah.
PCAC meeting.
Thank you.
Can we have an approval of today's agenda? Great. You've all had, hopefully received the minutes via email. Any correct? No, Oren? No? Oh. Oh, it's in a link. Okay. Any corrections or additions, or can we have an approval of the minutes? Okay, great. So it's been, needless to say, as you all know, a very busy few months for the councils and the staff.
me.
That's you?
That's my report.
Where's the chair's report?
Right here.
No, this is the transit chair. Isn't it? There's no PCAC chair? Oh, okay.
You can read my report.
I don't.
Just change them instead of we.
Go ahead, Lisa. You read it.
Sorry.
Let Lisa give her
You can,
report.
You can.
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's fine.
Sorry. It's been a very busy few weeks and months, as you can tell, because we're a little scattered
All the
here.
reports
So
are
apologize.
Falling together.
All the reports are falling together. So, yes, okay. So this is the quarterly staff report and executive director report, which you do not have, but which we'll send to you. So essentially, we've been nonstop, 1, 2, 3, go, for the entire time that we've been since we last met. After tomorrow, we'll have testified at all 3 quote-unquote downstate New York State Senate hearings on transportation and the budget. We have lots of questions about what some of the committees and advisory councils and questions mean, and for the board restructuring. And those are some of the questions that we're asking in these hearings as well. I went to Corey Johnson's State of the City speech the other day, in which he advocated for municipal control of transit. Oh, and the bridges and tolls, and the bridges and tunnels and their toll revenue to pay for it. So that's where the boxing gloves will probably come on. Next week, we're planning to release our 100 Days, 100 Nights report, and Bradley will talk more about that in a bit. And there has just been such energy in the office around that, and really so much work has gone into it. And did you bring that sheet of paper for me? Okay, and Sheila's also been working on a funding thermometer that is going to show how, through an interactive tool, different mechanisms for reaching $50 billion in capital for over 5 years. We're looking to do that next week. Also, because next Wednesday is a major day in the budget cycle where the one house budgets come together. And so that's why we're trying to get our messaging out as much as we possibly can in advance of Wednesday, which is why we're looking to release the report and the funding thermometer Tuesday as we continue.
While you're on that subject,
Yes.
we've given the report to Andy Byford, and he's looked it over, and he thinks the report is tremendous. So it is our hope that we can do a joint release with Andy Byford's office and team. If not, we still need to do this next week,
Yeah.
because timing is essential in the process.
Are we going to do a press conference or just release it?
Yeah, we're going to do a press conference. As soon as we know details, we'll let you know.
Please, yeah,
Yep,
because, yeah.
It's sort of minute by minute, but as soon as we figure it out, once we know, you'll be the third people to know.
The third people?
Yeah, us and Andy, right? The third people, third people. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank the Academy. Actually, no, I'd really like to thank, on the 100 Days report.
There's so many people you'd like to thank.
There were so many people. on the 100 Days Report, Ellen Shannon for helping to frame the argument regarding the successes of the Subway Action Plan and the need to fund Fast Forward. Sheila, who's brought fresh eyes to the report halfway through its development, edits, building the report visuals, keeping us on track in many ways. Sean, who connected us with his twin brother Kyle, who was our consultant who coded the data to be readable by us. And Sean was key in creating the macros that helped us automate the data and saved a lot of time. Uday, who's here with us today, who helped formulate some of the recommendations based on his track knowledge and operational experience, or knowledge. Angela, and Uday just got accepted to Harvard. We celebrated that, but I don't think we celebrated it here, so we're really excited about that. Angela Valicio, who had been with PCAC and now is with DC Department of City Planning. She was the original report lead and directed and oversaw the original surveys in which she participated in, and the Transit Writers Council participated. Andrew and the entire Transit Writers Council for their survey work and input and comments into the report. Me for being the constant nudge, fresh eyes, edits, press. Carol for continuing to also keep us on focus and talking about release and about some of the political aspects that we should consider. And New York City Transit and Andy Byford, who vetted the report and provided recommendations. So
You say nudge, I say naglian.
yeah.
Naglian.
So we'll send our report along with some additional activities. We've been a presence in Albany, we've been a presence in New York, and we've been a presence in the surrounding counties, talking about the budgetary needs of each of the councils, all of the riders. We have been consistent and clear in our message. We've been advocating for voting role for our current non-voting members on the MTA board. We've been continuing to push for appointment for the names of council members and the outstanding council members for each of the three that are up in Albany, and we're going to continue to work on that. So we are really pleased to be working with you all so closely and advocating on behalf of the more than 8.5 million daily riders of the system. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I'm just amazed by how much you've done. I mean, you're always out there and raising our profile, and I think we made an excellent choice in Lisa. I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Bradley again for his persistence. I mean, anyone who could ride 100 days and remember enough or to write down enough to make a report has certainly done a great job.
Anybody else like to, yes, Chris?
I definitely agree with Bradley because, reading it, even I was in Albany, I still reading it, and I have to say that when I was with him early those mornings at stations, it was kind of, you got to know what trains are all of a sudden coming in the station. You don't even know why they put this train there when they don't even make an announcements. So there were things that we found out that command centers don't even know this, but with Bradley and I working together those early mornings, or it was like a challenge because some of the stations are very overcrowded, and there were times that some people like to stay so close to the yellow line, and it's like people don't think of safety. So there are things we know we got to work on in the near future. But I really want to thank Bradley so much on this.
Question?
Yes.
You mentioned Corey's or the city council speaker's state of the council, whatever that thing.
State of the city.
Yes.
No, you called it,
No, he called it the State of the City.
he did call it.
That's what it is.
Which kind of,
Right.
anyway, whatever it was basically his transit report because that's all he focused on. But are we going to make some more, are we going to discuss it further or are we
We
going to make
can,
comments?
surely.
I think it would be useful because there's a lot of stuff in there that actually reflects directly on us
Yes, there is.
as well as on the MTA. So if we can discuss it further on.
We can indeed.
Okay, thank you.
So we did put out a very, as Sheila said, this statement says nothing, and I said exactly. Because it was a lot of information, it was a lot to, it was interesting. Corey's a dynamic speaker with some great ideas. There's a lot that needs to be talked about. The focus needs to continue to be on funding. And that's sort of the way we directed our initial comments. But there, and PCAC was included in the report, and I think that's because we met with his staff, as to continue in an advisory role, which we certainly would advocate for a stronger role. There are a lot of things in here in the report, and we'll also send it to a link to those of you who may not have seen it. It's 101 pages of ideas for the BAT system, the Big Apple Transit System. So I guess that means there's a BAT signal that will come out as well.
It really
We
comes
put
into
out,
its own
did
on
we put out
Halloween.
a written statement about it? Did we say something about?
We put
Okay.
out something very brief.
I have asked again that anything that we put out, any statements, any press release, anything, if you could please send it to, well, I've asked for me, but I know there are other people on the councils who would like to see what we say also. So if you could
We will
just send
do our
it,
best to do
please.
that. Yeah.
And if you could send me, I don't know if anybody else wants, a copy of whatever we put out in writing on Corey's thing, I would really appreciate it.
It was one paragraph, but yep, we
If
can
it was-
do that.
if it was
It's
4
also,
words.
it's also on the website, and
No,
we
I-
and
We'll
we
send
tweet
it out.
We'll send.
I would
All right,
appreciate
so
it.
we'll send the copies of the testimony that we've given, that Randy will be finishing up tomorrow. He's cleanup hitter, providing the testimony. That's not done yet, but it's not finished yet. But we'll send the testimony and the
What's that?
statement from Corey's.
And everybody should know that all the testimonies we've done are on our website, pcac.org. So we're trying to cut down on paper. So if you want to see the testimony, go to the website.
No, I would ask that it be sent as an email, because when people
We
inquire.
said we will, Trudy.
Okay, but I've asked for this before, because when people inquire, at least of me, I don't want to say, go to the website and then you can find it, or I'll send you a link. It's much easier to just send whatever
And we will.
I have.
We will.
Not just on this.
On everything.
Thank you.
We have a lot to talk about before our speaker comes. Trudy, you want to close your mic so we don't
Oh,
get
my.
feedback? Thank you. We're going to go to the chair's reports of the various councils, Metro North. Well, actually, Long Island Railroad will come when Jerry comes back. He's on a conference call right now. If you have any questions about the Long Island Railroad Committee's report, Jerry will take them. But at the moment,
We sent them all out yesterday.
we did send them, yes. Randy, do you want to give your Metro North Council report? The highlights of, or just if you want to note anything?
Well, there's really nothing I want to really highlight here.
The New Jersey Transit meetings and,
Yeah, well, Lauren and I went to a committee meeting for the first time for me ever, was to do with service, and I asked the new Senior Vice President and General Manager of New Jersey Rail Operations, the former Long Island Railroad, a former Long Island Railroad President, Ray Kenny, about when our express trains were coming back, and he had no answer. He said, I can't tell you. So I'm thinking, is it because it's a top secret? So I pressed him further on it, and it turns out he said he just doesn't know. So it's all contingent on getting their engineers out of the training classes, and in the meantime, we're still short those express trains, which has an impact. You know, when you only have 18 trains a day and you lose 2 of them, it has an impact on people's lives. And the good thing I found out from Metro North that we are not paying them for those trains. We stopped paying last year when they suspended them, and we're not paying them now for not running them. As Lisa said, I'm going to be testifying tomorrow in White Plains, so we're working on that testimony. And I don't have anything else that I want. It's all in the report. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
This on. I'm going to do a sort of a combined transit and board report in the interest of time. Everybody knows about the fare hikes. Everybody's glad handing each other on the fact that the basic fare was kept. What this means is a larger fare hike for the majority of transit riders. Doing away with the bonus is something I was not in favor of. Keeping the accessoride fare where it is a no-brainer, because folks who use accessoride do not have access to the discounts that everyone else has. When the new fare payment comes, they will, but right now they do not. But doing away with the bonus for the base fare, remaining at $275, which almost nobody pays unless you've forgotten your card or you're a tourist. The most economically challenged New Yorkers have been shown year after year to be buying the bonus card, and now the bonus is done away with. So that's a larger fare hike for the majority. Obviously, you know the weekly fare is up $1, and the monthly Metro card is up $6. On the commuter rails, the cap was lowered from a $500 maximum to a $460 maximum, which is good news for riders of the commuter rails. We also think that someone who's forked out the money for a monthly Metro North or Long Island Railroad commutation ticket should probably be entitled to a, because those are so high and because a good majority of them switch to subways or buses when they reach the city, they should have been entitled to a discount on the monthly Metro card. That just would have been a nice thing to do. You've heard the name for the new card, the new fare payment card, Omni. Yes, it sounds like a hotel. It wasn't my pick. This did not go before the board at all. I think My New York would have been a much better name for the card. It would have gone along with My MTA app, and it just would have been something that would have bounced off the rider better, I think.
We couldn't do anything about it.
No, I asked President Foy. He said it was a done deal. They hired a consultant. The consultant did public outreach, and Omni is what they came up with. We were certainly not consulted on that. You've heard about the mayor and the governor's proposed congestion pricing plan, and with it, the I'll use Beverly's favorite word, concomitant plan to blow up the MTA. Nobody knows what that means, but there are some onerous and not so good things along with that blowing up of the MTA. Many of the functions of the three operating agencies would be combined, taking away some of the expertise that each of those agencies has and throwing it into a general MTA hat, if you will. Andy Byford is an expert. He's just brought in a signal expert. They know exactly what they're doing, and some functions of many of the things they do would be taken away from them. I really hope that the legislature does not go along with this part of the MTA consolidation plan, because I think it's bad, and I really don't want to lose Andy. Did you want to say something? You're making
No, just
motion.
telling
Oh.
Jerry to come up as he's
Oh,
representing.
Jerry's back.
LRCC.
Oh, okay. You have, of course, heard about the tragedy, and Jerry might want to add to it. In Westbury, those three folks that were fleeing the police went around the gates, weren't hit by one train, but two trains. Obviously, MTA, Long Island Railroad Main Line third track will be doing away with some grade crossings. I don't think everyone, but a good number of them, which will save lives. I noticed the governor has mentioned cameras at the at grade crossings. I don't know how that stops. I think a rough surface as you approach a grade crossing might sort of, someone who's not paying attention might call your attention to the fact that you're coming to something that's different.
Well, the gate being down should also be.
You would think so. Fortunately, when Waze was guiding you to your destination via Long Island Railroad tracks, that has been corrected, and hopefully you are looking out your front window and not at a GPS when you're driving. But you never know. So that is a terrible thing. Performance metrics are going to be something that each of the three operating agencies will be tested with. They have to improve markedly by next year. It is not a matter of the fare hike. If you don't meet those metrics, that was something that was proposed but is not happening now. But for transit, for instance, it means something like a 70% increase in reliability, and hopefully that's achievable if the money keeps coming in and if the subway action plan keeps coming along and Pete Tomlin addresses our signal issues. Maybe we can achieve that. You have heard about the change in the L-train plan. Our speaker today will mention that because something else that was taken away from Andy is Jano is now in charge of the new L-train revised plan. We were supposed to get a consultant at the board that was supposed to guide us between the safety, reliability, and longevity of each of these plans. Apparently, that is not what the consultant is going to do, but just keep us updated on the new plan, which was not at all what we expected or intended. It's a $1.6 million consultant fee who will be doing something that is not exactly what we expected they would be doing. No, it has not been publicly announced. You know that there are now, the first of which is this evening at Our Lady of Guadalupe at St. Bernard's, 328 West 14th Street. Tonight between 6 and 8 p.m. will be the first of the 4 new revised L-train public meetings. Town halls, yeah. I'll be going to that one tonight, and I will see what the story is that they're presenting.
Sheila's going to try it.
Oh, okay.
She's an L-train rider.
She is, when she's not biking. No, I know she rides to the train. As far as some of the proposals for MTA, there are supposed to be now term limits on board members that would go with the person who appointed you to the board. In the case of the labor and rider reps, it's our organizations that have appointed us as opposed to a specific elected official. So we do not know how that works. The chief legal counsel is looking into that. Yes. So we don't know any more about that. Jerry, did you want to say some? Oh, Bert, sorry. Yeah.
Question, how many board members are liable to be thrown out if they go through with this rule?
The governor has 6 out of the 17 voting members. The mayor has 4. One of the mayors has resigned as of the other day, but effective April 4th, Carl Weisbrod. So this round of meetings will be his last at the end of this month.
He came on the same time
He's
I
just
did.
said he needs to do whoever does this needs to do a really thorough job, do a whole host of reading and research, and he just is running out of time to do all of the things that he needs to do, so.
He said he doesn't have the bandwidth.
Yeah, he doesn't have the bandwidth, right, that was a nice way of putting it. So, there's that. David Mack was recently reappointed to the board. For those who are longtime board watchers, you probably know David Mack. His name is on, his and his wife's name are on ambulances all over the city. He's a well-known builder.
Sarah Feinberg.
Sarah Feinberg, yeah. Is that official already? Yeah, okay. Sarah Feinberg, former FTA. Okay, so Sarah is also a new gubernatorial member.
So just a point, so her name was announced, and she was appointed in a handful of weeks. Takes 8 months to get somebody moved close enough to be appointed to one of the councils. So we're going to work with the electeds on that.
Yeah.
It's not the elected, it's the governor's office.
Well,
It's the governor's office, but the people who are appointing the members, I would imagine, are not happy about not being represented, and particularly those who are of the same party might be able to accelerate the process.
and might is in quotes there. Bert, did you ask your question already?
I asked, but you gave me the answer.
Okay.
Answer about existing members.
Oren
but-
and then Trudy.
But are all of the other members been appointed by people who are still on the board? Or are they?
The mayor is still mayor, and the governor is still governor, obviously. The county execs have changed, and so it would affect people that were appointed by county execs. Andrew Saul, for instance, there's a new county executive in Westchester, so he would be affected. Well, David Mack is already there. Suffolk.
And then,
Yeah, I guess Mitch was appointed by somebody prior to Steve Ballone.
and then there's, the issues of the quarter pounders, and there is a push now to try and get them full voting memberships as a vote each, since the level of,
Or at least a discount at McDonald's, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
if they go to the White House, they can have that for lunch. But there are a lot of different things in play. There's also a major question about whether the amendments in the 10-point plan will all pass in the budget, or if it will be a clean budget bill with just congestion pricing, with a lot of giveaways that are now being discussed at varying tables and levels. So
And one of the obvious things that is not in the current congestion pricing plan, but which MTA officials, having visited Albany twice in the last 2 weeks, are hearing a lot about from county representatives, are congestion pricing currently does not give money to the commuter rails. And if you want, those folks would be obviously eligible to pay the congestion pricing fee. They ought to be able to get something from it. So money for Long Island Railroad and Metro North will probably be included. It must be included for this to pass cleanly. Trudy.
You just spoke about the governor's reorganization or consolidation or whatever you want to call it. But now that Corey has come up with his own plan, was there any talk at the board meeting at all about the two plans and how they match and what that means? Because
Corey
there
only
are
gave
big
his state of the
difference-
city just the other day, so it was well after the board meeting.
Okay, but has there been any chatter among board members since Corey's? Let me put it that way.
So there has been chatter by Corey.
That we know.
But part of his chatter says he knows it's not going to happen this legislative session, and he doesn't expect it to happen next legislative session.
Not
That it's a
until he
work in
becomes
progress,
mayor.
and it's a conversation starter.
Not until he becomes mayor, which he has announced already.
And Trudy, for the city to get all of the proceeds of bridges and tunnels and not
can't.
give it to the commuter rails would be a non-starter, I am sure.
What Corey was basically talking about, and it's been pointed out to him, is that the MTA is not just New York City. It is not just New York City Transit. It includes the Long Island Railroad and Metro North, and that was pointed out to him before he made his.
And that's included in his
Pronunciamento.
report. He actually talks about how how Metro North and how the Long Island Railroad would be, could be otherwise contained, and how construction could otherwise be realigned.
But
He talks about giving oversight to either state DOT or to NIMTIC, which is an interesting concept. So there are several things in his plan that will go nowhere. Part of the other issues that he talked about, there's a lot in there. There's 101 pages. So I think he clearly gets that this is a start, not a finish.
And the only thing that he is in agreement with the governor and the mayor is on congestion pricing,
Right.
which he also came out for in that report. And now it's just up to the Long Island and Westchester, especially Andrea
Stewart
Stewart Cousins,
Yeah.
that about the distribution of what you just spoke about, the distribution of the funds.
Yeah.
That they will get some, because right now the Long Island, the new state senators from Long Island are the ones that are
Absolutely.
really holding back.
Yvonne?
Yeah, I have a question about the congestion pricing plan.
We're going to give you a mic, Yvonne.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I have a question about the thank you. Question about the congestion pricing plan. Well, actually, two. First of all, people who are residents, there's nothing in there about them getting discounts, but there is, like, for example, they have in Staten Island, and they even have it in London and some other places. And number two, people are not going to know what the charge is until the end of 2020. Well, are those things going to be changed?
You're right about those things, and somebody who is a Manhattan resident, for instance, who needs to go back and forth, it's not clear if there's a residence discount for Manhattanites. Supposedly, people who need who are not ambulatory, there'll be a carve-out for them? I mean,
There is.
there may have to be for emergency vehicles, taking someone to a hospital. I mean, there's all kinds of unknowns still. But what is known is that because the FDR is a limited access highway, whereas West Street is not, the FDR is exempt, but West Street, because it has all these intersections, is not exempt.
Right, but it's also, the FDR also feeds from the 3 East River bridges.
Right.
But the other, I know that, so to sort of include that response to what you were talking about, what everybody is seeing is a concept, not a plan. So this 10-point proposal is still a proposal. Either the Mass Transit Expert Panel or the Regional Transit Committee, which was what was named in the 10-point plan, as opposed to the 30-day amendments, it's either 2 committees or 1. Their charge is to come up with the approach and the fee. So one of the reasons that it would take 2 years to fully develop and implement this is because it has to go through the NEPA process, the federal process. So the board has actually, in the last meeting, brought on environmental attorneys who will deal with all the federal aspects of that affect the city streets and any of the state ownership that go there as well. So there's a lot of moving parts, absolutely. But you're right; those details are not included. But in the 10-point plan, the mayor did get the carve-outs at least some of the carve-outs that he was looking for.
One more thing about the Westway thing. West Street. God, I'm telling my age here.
Wow,
West
Yvonne,
Street,
haven't heard that.
The FDR is exempt, yes. But, people from Brooklyn take that tunnel to come in and hook right in with West Street, and that's not exempt.
That's right. That's
They-
exactly right, because you would then have to have readers at every single cross street of West Street, all the way up till it becomes the Henry Hudson Parkway.
But if you come through the tunnel, the fee is applied toward against the toll that you've paid. Same with the Midtown Tunnel. So we were actually talking, Randy and I were talking this morning, with the Rockland County Executive's Office, who is concerned about the free 3 East River bridges. And if you come off those bridges and you go on the FDR Drive, then yes, you get a free ride. If you cross into anywhere in Lower Manhattan, it's a de facto toll.
Yeah.
So it's sort of
Why is that a concern with the Rockland County?
because they think that everybody who comes in should be told, not just people from. Yeah. So.
Now, is the Verrazano Bridge included in this offset? If I go from Verrazano to the Brooklyn?
Use your mic. Yeah.
So if I go from the Verrazano to the Brooklyn Bridge, is that Verrazano toll offset with the congestion pricing
I
or no?
believe so, yes.
Okay.
But again, concept, not a plan.
Well, exactly,
So, right.
exactly, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I think that the
We are, right?
I think that the only thing that everybody agrees with, though they don't have, is that there are so many hospitals along the east side especially, and that anybody going to these hospitals or to doctors, that there will be an exemption for a medical exemption. I forget what they're calling
That's in
it.
that's in the plan.
That's in the plan.
Or that's
Yeah,
in the-
no,
that's in the
what I'm
10-point
saying, because
proposal, yes.
People have
Yep.
been questioning about that.
Yep, that was, that's.
And that is in the plan,
Yeah,
so that
that's in the
should be
10-point
noted.
proposal
Yeah.
reached by them.
One of the things we didn't do is, does anyone have a question for Jerry on the Long Island Railroad Chair's report? Or do you want to emphasize anything, Jerry?
No, pretty much everything we wanted was in writing, but what I would like to emphasize is, and we had mentioned earlier about the quarter pounders trying to get a full vote. When Mark appeared at the Senate hearing on Friday, he had requested that the riders' representatives also get a vote that are on the MTA board. Whether that's going to happen or not, but we did make the request, and hopefully they'll take that under consideration. The other major item for us is the testing for the positive train control. It has been abysmal, and we are pushing the MTA to hold the contractors' feet to the fire. We should not have to pick up any of the additional costs to make these corrections.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's got to be some sort of warranty, wouldn't you think?
Exactly. And that goes for any additional overtime that might have to be spent to correct this, because we are under a deadline. And because they've screwed it up so badly, the deadline is in jeopardy, and that is a major concern to us. Other
And it
than that-
affects Long Island and Metro North.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Oren, use your mic, please.
Whoops. Excuse me. At the last combined Metro North and Long Island Railroad Committee meeting, an unprecedented event occurred. We had the chief management officials from both Bombardier and Siemens there. They were called in and grilled by the board members about the status of the PTC installation. I've been coming to meetings for many, many, many years and never saw that happen before, because there's such great concern that the vendors have not done a satisfactory job in putting in positive train control, and the board members are very concerned that we're going to be able to do this and meet the deadlines.
Do you know who's installing it in New Jersey Transit territory? You don't know? Oh, okay.
I know on the cars, I think they're sending the equipment to Kawasaki to do it, because they have some kind of a small plant there.
Any other comment? Chris?
I do want to say that the way that Long Island Railroad handled that incident that day was really handled with a lot of things, because during rush hour, they had the train ran like a single one track only, but running proceed with caution, and there was more communication was much better, because a lot of my colleagues who lives in Long Island for the OPWD want me to say that it was well done.
Yes,
Because-
and they got the service back really quickly, considering the damage done to the track, the
Especially-
Westbury platform,
Yes.
the gates, and all of that. Have
Because
to remove car equipment that was smashed.
And when the reroute was the care division they have now was rerouted, it was better communication was the better one was getting done, because a lot of the people who uses wheelchairs in that station, thank God they weren't on that station that time, but they were told that they were cross-ordered to a different position. There was communication, but it's like it's starting a little better. So I hope we can please
No,
pouch to
communication was good.
Long Island.
Jerry, did you want to say something about the new schedules that Long Island is coming out with?
Thank you, Andrew. I was just ready to say that too.
Yeah, South Fork and the link thing.
Well, the big news is on the South Fork, they are running 6 additional trains, 3 westbound, 3 eastbound, and it's strictly a local service. There's no connector at Spionk to take you into New York or pick up trains from New York. But it's something that they've been looking for on the South Fork for years. I mean, Fred Thiel, the assemblyman, has been pushing this almost 20 years probably. But I mean, back before he was even an assemblyman, he was Southampton Town Supervisor, he was pushing for this. So it remains to be seen what kind of ridership we're going to get on it. But they did have something similar to this a few years back when they were doing some major work on the roads out there. And it was used pretty much. So we're hoping this is something that will be here to stay. It's, the infrastructure's there. The tracks are there. The stations are there. So why not get as much use of that as possible?
And it's really good to see additional service being provided on the east end, because you may all recall the juxtaposition that was so terrible when the mobility tax was imposed and all of those service cuts were taking place on the east end. That was just the worst possible juxtaposition of events. Charge people and then take away service. So it's great to see service being restored, and service on some of the North Fork, trains, additional service to Greenport on weekends has been provided since those awful days of the service cuts in 2010. So that's all good. Bradley, before our speaker comes, do you want to say something about your report and what we hope to achieve when we release it next week?
There we go. Just to quickly summarize what both Lisa and Andrew said, that we are hopeful to release the report next week. It is important that we release it as soon as possible. It also marks the year since I stopped doing the survey work, so it's crucial that we get it out right away. Yeah. Also, Lisa already went through the details of thanking everyone on the report, which I want to extend that as well. Everyone came together, Andrew, the council members, Sheila, Lisa, Ellen, Sean, even Angela. And I also want to do a special shout out to Uday Schultz, who actually came to the meeting today. Uday was very instrumental in helping us to develop some of the recommendations in the report. I don't know if you guys know, but Uday really knows the system inside and out, and he helped us with some of the reroutes and trying to figure out how we could actually make those possible. So I wanted to say a special thank you to Uday for all the work that he did on
And
the
so
report as well.
Uday's name will go on those proposed reroutes. And
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes. So, yeah, thank you very much.
And Bradley, it's also timely that we get it out because in about 2 weeks, Astoria Boulevard Station will be closing down for ADA repairs. So the two stations that are mentioned in several places, you know, the terminal, that's all going to change while this happens. So.
Can I just want to add one thing before I know you want to talk about the ADA thing? I do. Yep. I was speaking with a reporter this morning. Many of you know Dan Rivoli, not Rivoli, from the Daily News has gone to New York 1. Today was his first day. He has actually made for TV, which is good. Some people, you know, are made for radio. And when I spoke to him a bit about the report, and I said, you know, we looked, it's over a year. So what it does is show improvements from before a subway action plan to after a subway action plan has been put into place. He was really excited because he said that really will show the progress, and that, you know, then it will help to highlight what Fast Forward can do. So this is it is so timely, especially as the budget is being discussed and Fast Forward is being bandied about. The mayor and governor's 10-point action plan talks specifically about the subway action plan and finishing it. It does not mention Fast Forward at all. So if you look at the Gotham Gazette piece today that Andrew pointed out, he couldn't have said better, and I agree. Looks at their number one concern is whether or not these proposals and plans are undercutting Andy Byford. Their number two concern was about whether these proposals and plans are undercutting the board, or that might have been their third or something. But you know, certainly top of mind of the regional thinkers in this pool.
And yes,
Excuse me, just one note. It's Parsons that's doing the PTC work for New Jersey Transit.
Andrew, one more.
I'm sure you've all heard about the court decision.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask.
Of the Southern District. Edith is cheering. We don't know yet what MTA will do. It stems from the lack of accessibility when Middletown Road Station on the number 6 line was being renovated. Yes, that's something we can ask Jano. There's language in the court decision that says, you know, if technically feasible and it's not clear who makes the determination if a station is technically feasible to accept. You think? Oh, is that true for sure?
That's what I've been told already.
So
I did ask that question.
Another question: would it apply to the L train? Because some stations are becoming accessible, but not all.
The L train's going to be an interesting one in that we did get, I sued, and we got one station is being made accessible, 6th Avenue.
And First Avenue?
In
Bedford
addition,
Avenue?
in addition.
Yes, 6th Avenue is the additional.
Right, 6th Avenue is the addition. The bottom line is that this is going to end up being a battle with every single individual station.
Of course.
This is what we did with Dykeman. This is what we did with wherever. The reality is going to come down to, if you look at Dykeman and you go, why the hell, it should have been 207. But it was cheaper to do Dykeman, since it was only one side and it wasn't an L. I I can only say that we will continue fighting, as you can well assume we will. And the Bronx should be very happy with this win. You better be, girl. It's
If only ADA wasn't an unfunded federal mandate.
okay, but excuse me, ESI. They found the money to do that. They're finding the money to do 20 stations in Washington Heights that are absolutely and totally inaccessible. And I'm waiting to see what we do about that. I mean, that's insane. 20 stations
Yep.
that are not accessible are getting, I'm sorry, the 20 elevators in 5 stations are being made, are going to continue to be as inaccessible as they are today after getting 20 new elevators.
And
This
let's
is-
not forget, the deepest stations in the city are basically in Washington Heights.
I agree. I understand that.
With the exception of
but
Hudson
it's like,
Yards.
it's two whams against the community.
Yep. This is going to be very interesting to see.
And it's going to be a disaster, an absolute disaster, when we start doing the 2A stations. Because people are going to have to go all the way around to
Yep.
181st Street and to come back up to get up the hill.
Yeah, that's
So-
another thing. It's an
You know,
extremely
it's
hilly
glacial
neighborhood.
moraines. We have 2 glacial moraines. I live in the valley. And our side is 14
Does that make you a valley
story.
girl?
Excuse me?
Does that make you a valley girl?
I guess
Oh.
so. It means, excuse me?
Moraines.
Moraine. A moraine? Okay, a glacial moraine is when the glacier came down, there were rocks stuck underneath it, and that made carve-outs. So we literally have 2 ridges, one on Fort Washington, one Wadsworth Broadway. So there were these 2 literally 14-foot high, 14-story high ridges. So the block next to me is 14 stories above us. I go across Broadway, and the next one is 10 stories above us. So we have hills that go like, we say we live in the mountains. I mean, I had to have, that was an extra $3,000 on my chair to be able to climb in Washington Heights. It's just, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's Mother Nature.
Washington Heights, the Bronx, and Staten Island are the hilliest parts of the city of New York. No question about it. All right. So we will continue to monitor what MTA does pending this decision by the Southern District of New York. I don't imagine they'll appeal. I imagine they will try to live with it. Hopefully, with congestion pricing moving forward, we will. And it's sort of ironic because no administration has been as committed to it, getting more of the system accessible as Andy Byford's New York City Transit. But this is where it is. I do recall one station on the 6th line, and I don't remember if it was Middletown Road or if it was Parkchester, but one of the transit or chairman told me if they had put an elevator in the only place that this particular station could take an elevator, it would have deposited people in wheelchairs in the middle of traffic on Westchester Avenue. But I cannot recall what station that was. It might have been Parkchester. Yeah, it might have been. Anyway, so we will keep you apprised on when we're going to release the 100 Days, 100 Nights report. And have we determined where we will be doing that? Will it be at Bowling Green Station or no?
We're thinking to do it at Lex 59th Street.
Oh,
Because that was the focal point of the report.
it certainly was, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we're looking at a few different options. One of the unknowns right now is if whether Transit President will be joining us. And if so, then we'll be working with their press team as well. So we're hoping to find that out today.
Yep.
So that we can start enticing riders. One of the things that we also, that I had mentioned that Sheila has been working on is the funding thermometer. I know we have a few minutes before Jano comes. Sheila, do you want to talk a little bit about that? But Mike.
So I'm creating a tool that allows you to see what each funding source added together contributes to the capital program, funding the capital program. Okay, some examples are replacing the gas tax with a VMT, vehicle miles traveled tax. What else? Reinstating the commuter tax, having a New York State gift tax, pollution tax, marijuana tax, pied-à-terre tax, what of FHV tax. There's like a lot of, there's I think about 30 options.
And so these are the inclusion of these fees and taxes does not signify our support for them. They are all things that are being discussed at the legislative in Albany and at all different funding tables and by different people. So we'll make sure to clarify that their inclusion doesn't mean that we're supporting them, but that we're presenting them for informational purposes.
There's one other that, Sheila, you did not mention, which is an internet sales tax.
Oh, right.
Yes, so I've just gathered every tax or revenue source that has ever been talked about in the last 5 years or so. So whatever analysis has been done, I've just included it, all of them that have been proposed. And then
So when I spoke to the chief financial officer about some of these, apparently the cannabis tax and the internet sales tax would raise in the area of $7 billion a year. Added to the congestion pricing, you're a little bit better on completing fast forward, but there's still a huge gap, needless to say. Has anybody spoken of 2 cents a gallon gasoline tax? That would
Yeah.
raise a load of money, and people wouldn't feel it because the price of gas varies by day and by station.
In fact, there's 3 different. There are 3. If they're still there, there are 3 different options for raising the gas tax on what the base fare would be.
yeah, so those are all included. And the tool basically shows how much money we still need, even with all these new sources, to fund the capital program.
And do these all come under the supposition that if some of these come online, existing subsidies will not be cut in any way?
No.
No.
No, this
hard to
is
do
that. That's a
this
real
is well. There are this is a tool that for the legislature and other funders to see. Okay, so if we need this amount of money, this can get us there. We're not doing that deep dive analysis. That's something that can come afterwards. Something that can be done by a independent budget office. But there's we're assuming that things continue with the same rate of bonding ability based on what's being discussed now. Whatever congestion pricing would bring in, $1.2 billion would translate to $14 billion or 1 in 15, depending on what you hear. We're looking for some clarity on those numbers.
Yeah, and I'm creating the website right now, and once I'm done, I can send it to everybody. Yeah, it's all online.
Lisa, this is of interest, I think, just the magnitudes that we're talking about, whether, it'll raise $10 million or $100 million. I think that's what people need to know.
It's really cool. And you'll see it's color-coded for different things, and we're working on some of the text now, but once, hopefully, the next day or so, we'll be able to send you private links to see what it looks like. And one of the concepts that we're talking about is releasing this at the same time as the report to show how you get to fully fund. But this is not just fast forward. It's also for the Long Island Railroad and Metro North capital plans. And the assumption that we're going on is $50 billion over 10 years. 5 years.
Bill?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have this at my fingertips, but I don't. But do you, board people, know what the current percentage of the deficit is represented by debt service? I had read somewhere that
It's
was
between
or will be
18 or 19%, I think, something, and do recall Acting Chair Ferrer saying, once you reached 20 or 21, you were in trouble. So we're in the 18% area.
I thought I had seen a higher figure, but
I
Okay.
don't, it can't be, because red flags would have gone up.
I hope so.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I hope I don't seem ignorant for asking this question, but we keep talking about increased tax and stuff for capital. How are we with operating? Is operating holding its own? So where's the additional operating money coming from?
That's the 2% every year that we raise the price.
Not only is it not holding its own, but fare evasion, at least on the subways and buses, is at one of the highest that I recall since I've been watching this, and we're losing in the area of $215 to $218 million a year, which is a lot of service that could be provided.
Oh, I believe it.
And tackling fare evasion is one of the specific bullet points
Yes.
in the 10-point plan that the governor and the mayor released. So that's something that they're going to work collaboratively on,
think
but
I believe the board
Councilwoman.
might be getting a presentation on combating fare evasion at
Great.
next month's meeting, because it's on the mayor and the governor's mind, and it was a major component of the new
Right.
plan.
So maybe a good question to ask the board is Jerry's. So, there's all this conversation about capital and feeding and funding the capital, but we can't forget about operating.
Well, there is reference to operating in that part of the plan is no more than 2% a year fare increases, which is the current approximate 4% every other year. But again, as Mitch and other board members have said, including me, if you take these to their ultimate conclusion, at some point you'll have a $25 fare and $50 tolls, and that's not sustainable. So we've got to do something about operating.
Other thing on the 2%, 4%, if you're doing 2% every year, that comes out more than 4% every 2 years because it's compound.
Some of the fare increases are not the full 4%. They're 3.8 or 3.6. So it might be a little better. They used to be 4% yield, which made it higher than 4%. Then they just dropped it to straight 4%, which is more like a 3.6 or 3.7% yield. So, yes.
Would also depend on whether you still had a discount. That's a big part of the difference. And they're taking
Right.
that away.
Apparently, the only discount now will be the unlimited ride cards and how you make use of all of those rides over the set amount of normal rides that the fare would give you. So,
There's also been discussion lately, this week, about the expansion of the Fair Fares program, which is the discounted, the city-funded discounted fares that had been rolled out very badly, according to most reports, to increase the number of eligible applicants, I think by 30,000. That would include NYCHA residents, CUNY students, and veterans who are below the poverty rate. So that's something that's a long time coming, for sure. And at every transit committee meeting and most board meetings, we have a gentleman who comes and talks about the need for 2 cents diversion from fares to fund veteran half-pass cards. So it's at least got some outcome from that.
Question?
I know Andy's
Sure,
checking
please.
in with Jano's
Go ahead.
office.
Oh,
that's
okay.
why.
As far as the 2-4% bi-yearly increase, is that in perpetuity right now, the way the legislation, not the legislation, the board's ruling, is there any time
not
limit?
not every board member wants to see it every other year.
But
It's in the budget proposal.
I'm just saying
so
the way
it's
that
nothing yet.
it was worded when it was first voted upon, X number, I don't even remember how long ago.
Yes, it's every other year.
It was in, but there was no date set that it would, that would end. It's in
No, there's no sunset.
perpetuity and sunset, yeah. Okay, and the other thing is David Jones still the main proponent of the Fair? And is he now including the veterans?
I haven't heard David speak about the veterans discount that H.P. Schroer comes to every board meeting and advocates for. I have not.
Included in the announcement.
It is included in the announcement,
Yeah,
however.
so, oh, okay.
Edith.
I'd like to raise the issue of the accessoride fare, although it has not gone up. As you did say before, I mean, I usually have a monthly, which is totally worthless as far as accessoride is concerned. So here I'm paying for a monthly ticket. In addition, I have to pay $275 for accessoride. I would challenge the MTA to look at the poverty rate of the individuals who are paying $275 for accessoride rides. I am sure the poverty rate, because these are mostly people on a multiplicity of benefits, which we all know are geared along the poverty rate. And therefore, I am not defending the number of people who use accessoride. I am not defending whether they need, whatever. But the bottom line is, we're paying twice. We're paying in our unlimited card, and we're paying in every trip. I would hope that with Omni, we would go back and look at the utilization of the Omni card for accessoride. The biggest problem with accessoride is having 2 singles and 3 quarters for a trip.
I think the new fare card system will allow for just the kind of thing you're talking about. People are talking about it, incorporating accessoride into the discounts that everybody else gets, and new possible discounts of combining. You can do that with Metro North, you can do it with accessoride, you can do it with everything. The TAP card allows us to do this, whereas the 20 years old should have been done away with 20 years ago. Metro card does not.
And I think that doubling the amount of e-hail.
I can't hear you,
Oh,
Lisa.
yeah, say that.
That makes one of us. The proposal is also to, wasn't it in the budget that was, or in the fare increases that were, it's either in the fare increases or in the conversation about increasing the number of e-hail participants as well?
Yes, that's in the discussion for sure. I don't know that it's in the final budget, but absolutely. And yes, Chris?
Picking on about the one Metro card, and I did mention at the TRC, I hope we can also see that a speaker will come and explain with this new card, because Lisa, I did remember we had a speaker, and he did say, and Bianca also said, this card can also be used with Metro North, Long Island Railroad, and accessoride. So it's like, if I'm in Long Island Railroad train, or better enough, if I'm at Metro North and I need to get out and go to Grand Central, when I get off Grand Central, that card should give me a transfer to the subway. That's the thing I remember hearing about.
Yes, it's good throughout all parts of the MTA.
That means it's one card, bam, I'm on the train. Bam, I'm on the bus. Bam, I'm on this. At least it will be a little more easy. The only thing that we need to...
It's really only BAM if you're going to the Brooklyn Academy of Music. Yeah.
Andrew, I had $1 you were going to say that. You owe me that $1 later.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, Andrew, we definitely need a speaker, because we want to make sure that we're all on the same page with this new card.
And we will be getting a speaker on the new fare payment initiative at a future meeting.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Andrew, when are they starting the system on the Lexington, the test?
For employees,
It's only employees?
well, initially it'll be employees, and
That
hopefully they'll
includes us.
get us some of the testing equipment as well.
If it says employees, our cards say employees.
Yeah.
So we
would
will be
think-
there.
I would think we should be part of that, but perhaps Jano can reference that in his speech. And here's Jano. For those that don't know, Jano is the MTA's Chief Development Officer, joined the agency in June of 2017, heads up MTA Capital Construction, manages the major capital projects that expand capacity, including 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2, East Side Access, Penn Station Access, Enhanced Station Initiative, improved rail mass transit to JFK, Long Island Railroad third track, and LIRR double track. He has oversight responsibilities for settling signalization. We don't need all this. He's a modest guy. Without further ado, Jano Lieber.
I know many of you. I feel like this. I've spoken to this group once or twice, and I know many of you individually, and some of you as our and collectively. And so, Andrew's somebody I've known for many years, and obviously Lisa's doing a great job as your new leader. I'm gonna go very quickly through some presentation materials on the L train project, which I'm overseeing the construction of. I'm not the expert in the service plan issues, which I think we're doing a pretty good job dealing with, but I'm going to tell you mostly about the construction. And then talking about something which I did at the last board meeting, which is how are we doing with the digital advertising program, which I think is a more important piece of the overall subway. It hasn't got much attention, but it's a big piece of the subway environment we're trying to create, which is hopefully a little more modern and important from a revenue standpoint. So if you bear with me, I'll go quickly through those, and then we can talk about anything that's on your mind. Is that okay? Sure. Great. So the L project. I mean, the big picture is, I understand, obviously everybody in New York recognizes that it was somewhat disruptive that we went from one plan that everybody had spent time thinking about to a different plan. But I'm here to tell you, because I spent the last 3 weekends in and out of the tunnels, the L train tunnels.
That counts for all the dust.
Yeah, yeah. This is a better plan, and we can talk about what, I wasn't here, and none of us was present when the decision was made to basically rebuild the L train tunnels exactly as they had been. But I wouldn't call myself an engineering maven, as we would say on the West Side, where I grew up, but this is not a super complicated project, and it really didn't require a full shutdown in retrospect. And I think it's good news that for 95% of the rides the people make on the L train are not going to be disrupted, because they're although God knows, the Lower East Side and Williamsburg are busy places in off hours and in the weekends. Most riders, because we're maintaining weekday service between 5 and 8 p.m., including all the rush hour times, so there's not going to be a ton of disruption for most people, and that is good news. Sometimes that's gotten lost in the sauce. So we're developing a new service plan. That's the so-called ASP. We are coordinating with FTA, City DOT, and NYPD to make sure that that new alternate service plan delivers convenient alternatives for people. And a lot of it is focused on getting people from maybe where they would have been on the L train areas in Williamsburg over to the J and the M. So that's the JZ rather. So that I think that's having the cooperation of all the city agencies is important.
You were right the first time, J and the M, because the Z only runs in rush hours.
I'm always in danger of getting details of the system wrong when Andrew Alpert is present to correct me, and it happens, and I welcome it. So we're doing the work, and more important, I'll show you at the end. There's an outreach effort that's underway. They've gone to all the community boards, but they're actually doing open houses for people in the neighborhoods, so they can hear about, again, the service plan and talk about it as well. The scope is, pretty straightforward, which is it's a tunnel rehab. I'll talk more about it in a minute. But on and we'll go into it a bit, on both the Brooklyn and Manhattan side, there's significant improvements in the access to the stations, in the accessibility of the stations. So you've got station improvements, you've got infrastructure upgrades, because we're trying to get the most out of the CBTC, which runs on the L line. It's one of the only two and a half lines that has it in New York. And we need more power. We need other kinds of improvements.
And we need to put Grand Street on that map.
Oh, golly, I did it again with Andrew. John, where's John McCarthy? If we ever show this map again without Grand Street, we're going to get in trouble. All right. Bedford Avenue work. As I said, I've been in and out of the Bedford Avenue station. There are new stairs at Bedford and Driggs. There are new elevators. There's access improvements both from the street to the mezzanine and down to the platform level. It's all shockingly on schedule. I was down there last week. They're doing the new platform edges. They're doing the new tile, the walls again. They're going to clean up the historic tile work. There's both substantive stuff like access and also aesthetic stuff that's being done. And there's a whole new set of stairs being added to the platform, and it's well underway. So that's significant because that station needs more vertical circulation, needs more access, and that's going pretty well. First Avenue, a whole new entrance at Avenue A. The excavation is done. As you can see in that picture, the wall and the floor slabs are under construction, and the stair construction is underway as well. So,
Is this separate from the contract?
no, this is all within the existing contract. This is all. Yeah, I wasn't clear. This is all inside the existing contract. In fact, this work is unchanged. The real only change is in the tunnel area. And major improvements to track and switches. I'll talk about the track. It's the continuous welded rail, which avoids a lot of track maintenance and track problems. The fan plant is being rehabbed. I think this is, early 20th century stuff that needs significant rehab. And we're adding 2 new substations in Brooklyn and 1 in Manhattan, and that's key to the amount of service that we want to run. So that's the substation in Manhattan on Avenue B. It's a big excavation job. This is the one thing that's actually impacting on the community most right now because excavation is not quiet. So we're almost done. I think we're about 70% done with that excavation, and it was a little complicated because there were some utilities that needed to be supported. That's the little inset photo that you see, but it's all again doing well. Track renewal. They're knocking it out. Again, I said from visiting the tunnels on the weekends, they've got all these long sections of track in the tunnels, and every weekend they knock out several hundred feet, and it is very much on schedule. It's J-Track, which is a group, a company that really knows what they're doing in our system. It's a New York track outfit, and a more efficient third rail to deliver the power more effectively, smoother ride. If you have a third rail that is, I'm not going to say this right, but having one that's antiquated, there's a lot of power wastage that goes in that you don't take the benefit of all the power input that you're receiving.
Like 85-pound rail versus something like that?
You know more about this than I do. I'm blessed with a lot of technical ignorance. I'm more of a project management person.
So that'll be in all the new construction?
Yeah, when you do a major track job, you replace the third rail and you get an efficiency benefit. This is
I'm sorry, John. Does that imply that that new, more efficient third rail will go all the way to Canarsie? Because you wouldn't want to have it end in a certain place, would you?
I'm not, truthfully, I don't know that, it's part of the track, and the track is being replaced principally in the tunnel areas. But let me get back to you about that, because we are doing work in the stations beyond the tunnel, so I'll have to check about, I don't think the third rail is being replaced all the way to Canarsie. So, anyway, simple terms, this sometimes gets explained like it's super exotic. if you look on the left and right of this section, what you see is what they call a bench wall, which is, a concrete enclosure that contains a lot of the power and other cabling and systems. And it was done originally, and Mr. Glucksman will correct me, it was done originally because that was the best way to protect those systems in an area where you needed to have a path for people to walk anyway to do work in the tunnels and so on. Sometimes people call it the duck bank or whatever. That is made of concrete. There was a lot of damage done in Sandy, and the plan, and this is where the change is important, was that originally the plan was they're going to demolish the whole thing and build a new one and stick all the new cables and systems inside. The deans of Columbia and Cornell Engineering got involved with the governor, and they said, why do that? It is so much demolition. It creates a huge dust cloud, and that's why it takes time, and it's creating a condition where you can't run service. You don't have to do that. Instead, do the more modern way, which is to put up a very simple bracket with an arm, put all of your systems on, because the cabling is now almost all encased in fire-rated materials. It has these coatings that allow you to put cabling, which previously was in a duct bank to protect it from fire and other conditions, out in the open, and it's safe. And you have more access to it for maintenance. So that was their recommendation, and they said, don't demolish the duct bank entirely with this huge demolition project that forces you to shut it down. You can stabilize it all with what they call FRP, which is sort of a polymer coating system that basically stabilizes a structure so it won't move. And it's been used in all our bridges. So that's what we're doing. It's a pretty straightforward project. You're putting in new track, new ties, new drainage lines, and repairing the fire stand pipes. So that's a big piece of the work that's going on right now. Putting in this new racking system, which is, again, very simple. I'll show you a picture in a minute. And demolishing a heck of a lot less duct bank, hence the ability to do it on nights and weekends versus shutting the whole thing down. It really ain't rocket science, and the job is, frankly, I mean, we're fighting with the contractor, but frankly, we do on every job, right? And the work is getting done pretty efficiently. This is just some images of, on the left, you see these simple racks, which you put all the cables on, and you see a little mock-up of one cable that they cut. You see they cut it across as they were testing out how they would all lay there. And then on the right, you see the image of this this, what they call FRP, this coating and stabilization system using, polymer. I guess some people would call it space age, but it's pretty just modern man-made technology.
So the brackets are, is that a new structure that they are laying up again, so that's something?
No, it's you're just using the tunnel wall and there's sufficient depth in the tunnel lining that it's no big deal to affix the bracket to the wall.
So the pipes that are.
Yeah, those are
The pipes
old.
that are laying down, are they on one of those racks now?
No.
Okay,
They're
but that
going to
would show
sit
where
on
they
they're
would-
going to sit on the bench wall, what remains of the bench wall on those areas.
So they'll sit on top, and then they'll have two other stacking options on top of it.
Yeah, but those most of the stuff that's going on the racks
This
is
is cabling,
cables.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's not super heavy. It's not like some super heavy thing.
So, two questions.
Yeah.
If the cables are accessible as they appear to be from the picture on the left,
Yeah.
they have to be protected from a vandal or a terrorist. And I understand there's going to be an intruder alert on them or surrounding them. Who determines how sensitive that is? Will it be setting off false alarms at times and service having to be shut down? And the second question would be, if you're not rebuilding the entire bench wall and you're only doing it like you just specified,
Yeah.
what is the lifespan of the tunnel wall compared to the other tunnels we've done where we have completely redone the tunnel?
I have to tell you, Andrew, the first question and the exact setting of the intruder monitoring system, I'm going to have to give an IOU on that.
Okay.
I'll have to dig into that. But look, I mean, first of all, what you see on the right, that condition with an explicit crack in the bench wall, there ain't much of that. I've walked through the tunnel, most of the way between Brooklyn and Manhattan, and looked at the whole thing, and most of it is in surprisingly good shape. And in fact,
the whole thing is not going to get done.
no, it's like very selective. Even those that's in the worst condition, and that was just their mock-up. Most of it is in fine condition, and in fact, so much so that we've looked at opportunities, without getting too technical, for like where there were some areas where they wanted to increase the clearance. We're shaving off concrete, and it's all fine. The condition of the concrete is good. So, Randy, I would say that we're down to, instead of 35,000 linear feet of bench wall demolition, we're probably down south of 4,000 feet of demolition, and a couple thousand, 1,000 or 2,000 feet where we're going to apply this FRP. So it's a much smaller scale of job.
How is this changing the time frame?
That we are, I think now we're still, what we were saying to the public is we're between 15 and 20 months of the of completing it, when we have, again, full service during the weekdays and then just reduced service nights and weekends. I think we're going to be closer to 15 than 20 months. We're still working with the contractor on the schedule. But what we've done is in order to improve the schedule, and this has happened the last few weeks, this is what good professionals are able to do. They identified some work that they'd say, come on, why are you leaving that until later in the job? Let's knock it out this weekend and next weekend when you have outages. We have a couple of weekend outages going on right now, and the work has been very successful. And in fact, where we did 12 of those shaving things that everybody thought was going to take a long time last weekend, we did 12 of them, and we're going to knock out the rest of 35 this weekend. There's a demolition of a little wall area. It's all being moved up. The discharge pipe, the improvement of that water pipe is all being moved up, and that is allowing us to shrink the schedule. So while I'm not here to tell you it's absolutely going to be 15 months, I think we're getting closer to 15 months rather than 20.
Edith.
Okay?
Not to be a Cassandra,
Yeah.
but what happens if we have to walk people out in an emergency?
I think the same conditions that,
I'm
in what sense? In what, you're talking about on
Okay.
the bench wall?
Yes.
Okay. The
I'm concerned
condition,
about that.
that's a good question. The walkability of the bench wall, I showed you one side that has pipes on it, the other side is not.
Okay.
So the use of the bench wall as a pathway for both workers and, God forbid, an evacuation is going to be absolutely preserved. So there's no reduction in that, and your ability to move people through the tunnel in, God forbid, the case of an emergency.
And what is the width of that pathway?
I don't know the width offhand. It's a few feet, and I've walked on it.
Okay,
It's-
feet.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. It's not inches. It's not. You don't have to tiptoe. It's not a highway.
I'm concerned because having, if you're evacuating a train,
Yeah.
there's no place for us to go for wheelchair users. We
Yeah.
end up sitting in the train waiting until the train gets moved.
Yeah. Well, all I could tell you is I think that this is you can't make the time in order to I think to accommodate a wheelchair use of a duct bank as a pathway, you'd be just basically building a new tunnel, because the dimensions would not, it was never in the cards to build a new tunnel dimensionally. I will have to give you a little more information, and I'll provide it to Lisa about what the evacuation methodology is for this tunnel, and this is typical of tunnels in general. But there is, a very walkable pathway being preserved 100%.
Boston,
But the other thing I would add is that in terms of preserving the tunnel environment, those improvements to the fan plant and the ventilation are important because we all know that again, God forbid, in an emergency condition, having the ability to ventilate effectively is really, really important. And it's not good for any of us that those systems are, pretty as antiquated as they are. Trudy?
Hi.
Hi, Trudy.
Two questions. This is a process question because your explanation and what you've given us, at least it clarifies a lot of things for me.
Sure.
But will you or have you been presenting this or meeting with the elected officials who are affected and who can drive some of us crazy with their questions or their complaints? And will you be presenting at the town halls starting tonight?
Okay. So the answer is yes. In this room, in this exact configuration, we had the elected officials a week or 10 days ago. Most of them were represented by staff. Quite a few of them were on the phone. Senator Kavanaugh was there. Councilman Levin was there, and a handful of others. Gail Brewer was there, and there was a lot of staff. So we definitely are presenting to them. As I said, we're doing the community boards, and we will have people at the town halls. Although, as I think I'm conveying, my impression is overall people are less focused. People understand most of the logic of the construction, and their focus seems to be on the service plan rather than, what I'm talking about. But this is the in group, so I wanted you guys to understand it.
To follow up,
Yeah.
Brian and Steve were both at your meeting?
Yes, here, sitting in the same seat.
And that was before they held their press conference, then, with all the
I'm not
complaints?
keeping track of when they hold press
Okay,
conferences.
no, I'm just,
Yeah.
we can talk about this after.
I am shockingly unfocused on elected official politics. I'm just trying to focus on getting the job done fast, safely, and delivering for, I got lots of other headaches. So, and I was in Albany yesterday, so I got plenty of elected official time. All right, quickly, let me just finish and then do the next thing. Let me just get finished with this.
Okay.
One is resiliency. So we're protecting the fans on both sides of the river for reasons we just said, and we've done that. We're sealing all the street level vents around 14th Street. We're trying to make sure that water can't get into the system to begin with. Forget about getting, inundating the tunnel the way it did during Sandy. Part of that is a work in progress, which is increasing the pump capacity in the tunnel and finally doing something that everyone, when I used to be in the real estate business, everybody in New York real estate, everybody thinks that New York real estate people are so smart, but they all did the same thing, which is they had their mechanical systems in the basement. Come Sandy, they knocked out all their emergency systems, and everybody in New York real estate figured out how to move their mechanical systems out of the flood zone. We're doing the same thing for this system. This is the schedule. The open houses starting tonight. And the four of them, I'm hopeful that we'll start to get traction with people on, why this is better. You got to keep remembering 90%, 95% of the rides are unaffected. That's good. I understand people are frustrated by the change in direction, but we can't forget, for most people, what they want to know is, oh my God, I don't have to figure out some other way to get to work. That's great. So we're getting through that. I'm going to switch to another topic, which is the digital signage in the system, but maybe last questions on L-Train? The gentleman in the back, I'm sorry. I don't know. You call it. Yeah.
When you talked about the tunnel walkway, okay,
Yeah.
and I understand the concept of cabling by hanging brackets. What's the useful life of coating this with the polymer versus demolition and reconstruction?
I'd say the useful life, you're asking.
Meaning, are we going to have to come back and do a do-over by this
No,
alternative
this
method?
is that is, I think, one of the red herrings that came out of this. Look, somebody asked Tom Prendergast once, like very casually, like, how long is this going to last? And he said, I don't know, 100 years. And so now everybody's saying, are we getting short shrifted by some temporary fix? There is nothing in this plan that is less survivable in terms of time than what was being done before. I would argue that because you have the ability to access those cables and important systems, it's a heck of a lot better, because if, God forbid, anything goes wrong, you don't have to take apart the whole bench wall and try to find whatever has gone wrong. You have a system that is much easier to maintain, having access to the cables and the relevant systems. So with the proviso that the Andrew Alpert question about the risk of bad guys coming in and doing something has to be properly addressed, and that's a fair point. But truthfully, that risk, if you have somebody who's bent on doing evil, the bench wall has openings every couple of hundred feet, so they could get at it equally well. It's a bigger issue of tunnel.
No, but it serves another purpose
Yeah.
For evacuation. So I'm asking you again, because you're not answering my question. There's definitely a difference in the useful life if it was
No.
reconstructed versus this coating method. So what are you as
I don't think there is.
Andy Byford even said at our forum
Yeah.
that the wall was crumbling and deteriorating, but this method would achieve a result. But my question is, and you have engineers on your team, how long this investment in doing it this way, how much time does it buy us?
Again, what I've been told so
Yeah.
far is it is not per se have a shorter lifespan than concrete. Okay.
Okay, so what is the life?
I don't know it technically I don't know offhand, but it is, the real question is the relative lifespan of a piece of concrete versus a piece of concrete with a polymer coating on it. And what I would tell you in response is the bridges, several of the bridges in New York, including Bronx Whitestone and Throgs Neck, have concrete areas that have this same system encapsulating them. So, again, I don't think that it's a difference in kind. The gentleman has been waiting, so let me ask Chris.
The one thing that what I'm seeing when you guys are going to do construction on the L train between the Bedford and the First Avenue, there's been a lot of concern last time. I know, Andrew, you and I mentioned it at the last meeting about the concerning of the dust.
Yeah.
That it will affect a person asthmatically, because as one asthmatic to maybe anyone else, it will maybe affect them very much of the concern of safety, health reasons, and allergies as well, because people will be sneezing dust out of their noses, and it's not really fun because that can cause nose bleeding or other seizures to that.
Okay.
Are we going to be making sure that this is going to be safety for the customers?
Yeah, we will. So let's talk turkey here. When a train comes into a station, dust levels go up. That's the truth, because we monitor it all the time in every construction project. When you're operating, trains coming to the station, dust levels go up. So the real question is, have you cleaned up in the work that's gone on in the zones where some of dust can be picked up enough to prevent that from reaching unhealthy levels? And the answer is, we've been using these weekend outages to make sure that we we avoid that risk. There is a dust control plan, and literally every significant transit construction job has dust mitigation and environmental management plans. But in this case, we're really aggressively monitoring, because we understand that people have that issue in their heads. So
We're talking silica dust now?
yeah, but here's the thing, Andrew. So silica is a component of just the PM10 particle dust that's in the environment. So What we've done is we've, tested the relationship between, we've been doing all this concrete work on the weekends. It's all encapsulated in, all of the workers are wearing these devices to monitor the levels of dust. There's monitoring that's going on away from the work, outside the plastic encapsulation that goes on, and there's also monitoring in the platform. So we're really aggressively monitoring this, and as a result, I've gotten comfortable that when we do work on the weekends, and we're really doing a lot of concrete work now, that the levels of dust after we clean up, and we're doing it aggressively, and turn on the trains, are not going to push us to a level which puts us beyond the OSHA standards, which, Chris, by the way, are standards for a person to have 8-hour continuous exposure. So if we're not hitting those OSHA standards, I feel pretty comfortable that we're not putting people at risk who come and stand on a subway platform for 5 to 10 minutes.
So the obvious next question is, are you doing on these weekend GOs that we're seeing with
Yeah.
the shutdown from Broadway Junction all the way to 8th Avenue, work in the tunnel similar to what will
Very
be done?
much.
The exact same work?
Very much.
You're going into the bench wall?
It's concrete work. Yeah, we're shaving. I described it to you. We're shaving portions of the bench wall. Where I described to you, in the Bedford Avenue station, we were knocking down all the wall tiles. We're doing the new platform
What about
edges.
in the under river tunnel?
But Andrew, we're doing a lot of work, a lot of concrete work in the tunnel. But the highest impact place is in the station, where people will be. So we have, and I think we have continue, and we will continue to monitor. Don't get me wrong. When we go to these shutdowns and turn the service back on and so on, we're going to continue to monitor. But what I was concerned about, and I've gotten comfortable about, is that the levels of dust, if we comply with our own dust and environmental management plans, are going to be consistent with public health standards. And we will have an additional public health overlay. I have somebody on my team who's actually wrote the New York City CMAC code about dust management, so I'm comfortable with that one. Okay, I'm running out of time, so if you want me to do the live media one, I'm gonna
Do that, and then
have
we'll
to.
take- if
Okay,
you-
I apologize. I don't want to. I don't know the answer. I mean, look, the ADA ruling was a ruling on disclosure. I understand there's a lot of strong opinions about this, but there was some rhetoric in the judge's decision, but it was a ruling about discovery in that litigation rather than a final decision. Obviously, there's more to come. I must say, again, this is for me, and I'm not speaking for the MTA or anything. I was kind of shocked by the fact that the district attorney, the assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District, a recent Trump appointee, was saying, the MTA must put in, irrespective of cost, immediately at every station an accessible stairway, which is something we'd all like to do, but we know where we are. And using that kind of rhetoric at the same time that the Trump administration has done what they've done on state and local tax exemption, basically telling us, you have to tax your population an unlimited amount. And by the way, Trump has now made it, discriminating against states that have high taxes. So I thought that was kind of a shocking statement from the U.S. attorney, but that's just a personal opinion. It's a big issue. We got to make it a more accessible system.
Edith, and then we're going to continue.
When you first started speaking, you spoke about the new stairwells.
Yes.
That, of course, is a problem because you're adding vertical entry, which has to be complemented with elevators.
Yep. We're adding elevators too. So
Where you're
shame on me. Shame on me.
Excuse me. You're adding elevators where you're adding stairwells?
Yep. So there's new elevators both from the street to the mezzanine and the mezzanine to platform at Driggs Avenue, and I'm pretty sure where there's any addition of Avenue A as well, and where there's you probably know a heck of a lot more about the law in this area than I do, but I'm pretty sure that we are complying fully with the idea that you need equivalent elevator where you're adding stairway vertical circulation.
Okay, we're going to go on to this digital media program now.
All right, I'm going to go 100 miles an hour because I'm out of time, as much as I enjoy talking about all this. So one of the things that's going on is the advertising in the subways. We all grew up with, Dr. Jonathan Zismore and, the whole beloved New York City advertising environment. Dr. Z and the movie ads with the teeth blacked out. We all know that. But yeah, she doesn't. But here's the truth. One, people are, we need to upgrade to a different advertising standard in a world where everything is digitized. And two, we ain't going to make any money on the old-fashioned print advertising, rolling it up on the wall. So two goals: have revenue for the MTA and an environment which, by the way, and probably most important from all of our standpoint, allows us to do much, much better customer communications in a digitized environment. So the MTA board, in the end of 2017, approved a new partnership with Outfront Media, the old CBS Outdoor, but they've become a digital team, for the purpose of having a new customer communications and advertising system throughout not just the stations, both railroad and subway, but also in the cars, and to have it be increase our revenue. 53,000 screens to be installed over the next 5 years, roughly a third of that in the stations and 2/3 in the subways and rail cars. The MTA gets 55% of the gross or a minimum annual guarantee. So they're just starting out. They only put in a certain number. I'll tell you about where we are. But because the important thing was, for the first time, we're not just participating in, with the gross, but we got a minimum of $115 million. Once we pay off the capital expenditures that are necessary to install all this, so we get 115, next year it's 117, but that's the minimum. But once we go above that, we use it to pay off the cost of the capital expenditure of putting in all these screens, and then our percentage goes up to 60 to 70%. What do you mean, the physical screens? Yeah. I don't care, because Outfront, as long as Outfront's going to maintain them, I don't really want to own them. They'll be outdated soon enough. So the real issue is, do we have control over how they're installed? And the answer is yes. So as you have seen, or many of you have seen, in the subway environment, it allows us to digitize the subway map, to put in service alerts, and now we're able to switch the subway map automatically to the night version. So somebody who gets on, who might otherwise have had to look at the fine print we all are accustomed to see if the D train runs nights and weekends, right? In my day, it was the Diamond D versus the Circle D, right, Andrew? He'll tell me I'm wrong. I shouldn't ask the question. But it's much better customer information. And we're not quite there. I mean, obviously we can update to the night map at 9 p.m. We're doing that. But having the real station-specific service alerts is still a work in process. It's a software challenge that is still being worked through, to have the ability to translate to specific stations. But in the meantime, we're doing a lot of stuff to look at new formatting about how do we present the information to customers. And Sarah Meyer, who you probably all know, the customer information person at Transit, is the lead on this, sort of testing out different ways of communicating information. The advertising screens, a lot of advertising screens, that's what generates the revenue, but every advertising screen, or advertising screens in general, we get 20% of the time for us to communicate with customers, to do public service announcements, whatever. And that is another benefit of this.
20% of the time, or 20% of the screens?
20% of the time.
Oh. because we do have dedicated screens for customer information.
You have dedicated customer information screen, but on the ad screens, we get 20% of the
oh,
time.
okay.
Yeah. So, as I said, this is the 37,000 screens in the rolling stock. We're testing it now on a couple of trains on the 7, and it's all, and the deployment, because it's obviously dependent on getting trains that are modern and have, we're getting a lot of new trains because we're going to make them CBTC equipped. We're coordinating it all with the fast forward CBTC train equipment. So what have we done so far? A lot of surveying. Complexity here, it's not going to shock anybody, is our electrical systems and where can you put the screens and where does it work for the customer and where is it not going to get rained on. All that stuff is being worked through. We hit our goal for 18, which was not super high, with 50 stations to deploy. You've probably seen some of them. And we've now added to we have many more construction projects underway. So we're giving construction companies more stations to work on, and we're getting more companies working on it. So we're trying to get 100 stations done next year, and so on and so on. So that's the spiel on that. It's, I think, good for all of us that we're doing that.
Any research or any knowledge on the power consumption that this entails?
I should never come to this group. Andrew's always going to ask me 10 questions I can't answer. Look, remember me, I'm just like a dopey real estate person, so.
You're far from dopey.
You're
not.
You're
What?
far from dopey.
All right, I'll sell you the property. You want to buy a station? Do you know what the maintenance costs are? Yeah.
I'm concerned about the font
I'd kill you.
and the ability to blow up the feature on the screen. One of the biggest problems that many people have currently is the map is behind the people.
Right.
You can't get close enough to the map.
Yeah.
If you can't get close enough to the map, you can't see anything on the map. Will these screens have the ability to zoom in to a section and blow itself up?
It's not a touch screen. It's not a touch screen. So we're all spoiled by our phones. It's not. It was never meant to be a touch screen. Honestly, I think that we might. My own sense of it is that we probably have more challenges in terms of its regular operation if it was. That's a legitimate point. But if it was more, if it had more of that sort of touch screen ability, it would frequently, as we all know from our phones, not operate well. But your question really goes to how useful is this from an ADA standpoint. And I totally get that. I think that with the caliber of lighting that we're putting in this, it is going to, these are backlit. They are really going to be bright. I think if you've seen them in the stations, you can see it's a different caliber visually. And as far as how close you can get to them, that's a question I'm just not qualified to answer. It's a fair point, though.
Because one of the things that a number of years ago, they put in these, we called them the blue light specials, which never ended up getting any of the accessibility features. Basically, you talk to it, it talks back to you. It does not work for people who are vision impaired. It does not work for people who are sensory, who have deafness issues.
Mm-hmm.
And we would be very disturbed
Mm-hmm.
to think that this was a major job being done that continues to not have accessible features.
Okay. So because I'm out of my depth in answering your questions, let me ask the folks who are doing this to be in touch with Lisa and to, whether it's through Q&A or a discussion. It's an interesting point. I apologize, Edith. I haven't really focused on that. Our focus has been on getting these deployed, because as you guys know, because you're subway mavens, it's a system that doesn't lend itself to, you can't just go in and plug stuff in. You have, a ton of design issues and power issues and water issues and so on.
But one of the
And so I would like to answer your questions and address them. I'm certain that there were smart people who thought about some of these issues. They weren't just ignored. So let's do it properly and give you answers. I'll follow up with Lisa.
But the on-the-go screens
Yeah.
are touch. You can activate those, so maybe
Yeah.
maybe they need to be programmed so that a map part of that screen can be,
It's a fair point.
because they
I'm-
work with
yeah.
touch. That's where
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay.
Jano has to go, so 2 quick ones and that's
Chris,
it.
yeah.
Chris.
Half of my part.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's good anyway because it's double team. But the only thing I'm going to say is, with your screens at some stations,
Yeah.
you know, it's nice to know when they tell you where the train is running or not running. But it would be nice when you guys do that. You need to remind them, as Edith said about accessibility, what's a reroute direction of a person who needs to direct them by accessible train or non-accessible, because some people cannot understand that, or some people don't speak English. So there's a language barrier too also. I'm going to add that in. That's all.
Those are
And
good
Lisa,
points.
you'll be the
But Lisa, can you and I just
Yep.
follow up, make sure that I got all the questions and I can
Yes.
follow up to it?
And Lisa, please follow me also with the same as Edith, please.
Yes, absolutely, because actually my question follows and wraps it all up in a pretty, not all up in a bow, but it just, it adds to it. You showed the Bowling Green station, and one of the screens there with the elevators and the escalators out. I think it would be really beneficial to, not when you get to the station to see that that's out, but when you're traveling to it. Or
To the escalator.
yeah, so that either at street level or when you have the screens in the cars, so that people traveling along the line know that there's an outage and that they should get off at a different stop. So that's messaging.
That goes to Sarah's team, but yes, that's a good point. What we'd like to do is to just give people real time, information that's customized to their journey. There's a gentleman in the back who's very politely been trying to get attention. Yeah, I'm gonna quit it with Kevin.
Yes, so the missing is the USB charging all stations, like on-the-go travel, but the Second Avenue subway has USB charging stations. And plus, the L train station, it has Third Avenue has been discontinued because it doesn't have platform screen doors and moved to Sixth Avenue elevator. And plus, missing the tail tracks, which is stand from 8th Avenue to 10th, which is that the L train needs to increase. And plus, additionally, the 4th train, Utica Avenue extension will be Yucca Plaza on the 4th train station, but it terminates at Crown Heights. But we need Utica Avenue subway extension.
That's a
That's
whole
about it.
different topic, Kevin. That's not for today.
But it's good stuff. I agree with you. I'm excited by the idea that we could. I mean, this is my other life, doing big projects for the MTA. But I'm excited by the idea that we should be looking at options for expanding the system. And it's one of the things that, the next capital program we will wrestle with, because it's no secret we want to prioritize resignaling. But for people who live in areas that are not served by rail transit, we can't forget that those neighborhoods need service, and we need to be sure we have a rational development pattern for the city and don't just have more sprawl and people driving and so on. So I think your point, Kevin, is let's not stop thinking about expansion of the system, and I very much agree with you.
Yes, but
okay, I'm going to leave it there.
Thank
We
you
have some
very much,
IOUs.
Jano.
We owe you some answers. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. Any other business to come before us today? There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All right. See you all.
June 6th.
Trudy's got to let him go.